If you think branding starts with a logo, a color palette, or a Canva board, then this video might just save you a ton of time and money. If we haven't met yet, my name is Melissa. I run a brand design studio by day and a handmade product business by night. One of the things I hope to do here on this channel is to teach businesses more about how to think about branding. And so I thought before I jump into nuts and bolts of the brand design process, maybe I should start out with kind of an overview of exactly what branding is and isn't. So let's get started. First, let's talk about what branding is not. I hear a ton of businesses using the word brand, my brand this, my brand that, and more often than not, what they're talking about is probably their logo on something. But a brand is not your logo. It is also not your color palette or your other visual aesthetic. It's not a mascot. It's not your brand name. It's none of these things. All of these things are simply assets of your brand, but not the brand itself. The simplest way to define a brand is to explain it as your customer's perception of you. There's this godfather of branding named Marty Neumeier. He wrote a book called The Brand Gap. It really kind of put branding on the map as something businesses need to be concerned about. And he likes to say, a brand is not what you say it is, it's what they, your customers, say it is. He's also quoted as saying that a brand is a person's gut feeling about a business. A brand is an intangible thing. It's your customers' feelings about you. But when you have a strong brand, that becomes something your customers can believe in. And when your customers can believe in your company as a brand, that means they become very loyal because they start to see themselves in your organization. And that loyalty is like gold. That's what you're looking for, right? Because loyalty leads to long-term relationships with your customers, but also the bonus is it tends to lead towards decreased price sensitivity, which basically means you can probably charge more. Your customers will pay more for your service because they value you higher than another business doing the same thing. So if a brand is what your customers think of you, then what is branding? Well, branding is the process of deliberately and intentionally influencing what people think about your company. It's a deliberate set of actions to build an experience that reflects what you want to be known for. The fact is that you already have a brand, whether you've tried to build one or not. Your customers already think something specific about you. But branding asks the question of, do you want to deliberately shape that opinion? There's another branding legend. Her name is Debbie Millman, and she is quoted as saying, branding requires a great deal of intentionality. And that's the process in a nutshell. It's all about intention and building a specific experience for your customer. Now, when I say experience, I don't just mean what your customer experiences when they're working with you. I mean everything leading up to when they're working with you, social media posts, ads, things like that, and everything after. It's a full, cohesive thing. So at its core, branding is all about intentional, deliberate differentiation in your market. So now that we know what a brand is and what branding is, how do you do it? Well, there's a lot of large agencies out there who will try to tell you that you need like 10 different facets of your brand foundations and things like that. And in my opinion, what they're doing is really just kind of splitting hairs between three main pillars. So when I help my customers build a brand, we focus on three main pillars: your purpose, your values, and your style. These three elements form your foundational message or story that you tell to your customers, and then you build your whole experience around what you've defined in these three pillars. So let me give you just a really quick high-level definition of what each of these three things are. Purpose is the reason that you get up in the morning. It's the reason you started the business, and it really defines the difference you're trying to make in the world. Now, when I say difference you're trying to make in the world, it doesn't necessarily have to be like world peace or something like that, although world peace would be amazing. It can just be trying to solve a problem that maybe some of your competitors weren't solving well. You can think of your purpose like your North Star or your guiding light. Those are words that other agencies tend to use for your purpose. Then we have your values. Your values are just essentially your core beliefs. They guide the way that you do business. Then finally, we have style. And when you hear the word style, you can basically think of the personality of the brand. It defines kind of the way that as a company you move through the world. When you think of that, you can almost relate it to a person and their style. Every person has a purpose in the world. They have certain beliefs they function under, but then they have a style or personality with which they move through the world. It's how they talk. It's quite literally how they walk. It's how they dress. And so the style tends to be more of like the physical way that things manifest. And I am particularly passionate about that because that's where I tend to come in as a brand designer. I do have worksheets for each of these 3 things that I use with my clients, and they're all on my website. I have linked them for you below in the description. They're totally free, so if you want to kind of explore some of this for yourself, you can go hop over there, look at the worksheets, and kind of start working on defining your own brand for your business. Now that we kind of understand what branding is and the general components that come together to build your brand, I did just want to end this video with 6 truths about branding. Now, these are kind of things you need to know before you go into this because there's just some expectations that need to be set. First and foremost, branding needs to be built on your real, authentic beliefs as a business. You can't just like make stuff up willy-nilly that sounds good or that you wish you were, or chase trendy things, or even just cater to the preferences of like a single individual on your team. You need to be really, really dialed into who you are as a business and what makes you unique in your market. You want to consider the real things that make you you and highlight those wonderful differences that you have. Whatever you do to define your brand, your customers are going to hold you to this standard, so make sure it's a real standard you can live up to. An example of this for me personally is one of my chief values in my organization, in my design studio, is communication. A lot of people talk a lot of talk about communication, but I am a little fanatic about it. I actually almost care more that you have a great experience as a customer and feel well communicated with than I do about the design, which sounds funny, but trust me, I'm gonna do amazing design for you also, but I really want you to have an amazing experience. An amazing experience starts with good communication. It would be wrong for me if I start sensing a customer is having some frustration or maybe not understanding a part of the process, and if I just keep emailing them random things that they're clearly not understanding. Because I value communication, I am always going to, at the first sight of an alarm, going to call them on the phone. That's just an example of kind of how these things carry through to the real way you act in your business. Second truth, for branding to be effective, it has to permeate everything. It has to be woven into every touch of the business. This means you probably need to say no to certain things because there's going to be certain things, certain opportunities, certain trends in the market that just don't match with who you are as an organization. One of these things for myself is there's a lot of talk specifically in small design studios about productizing their service. I don't believe in that because I really hold this customer experience extremely high. So I always want to be giving people the thing they need. They need something slightly different than the last client I worked with. I want to be able to customize that process for them. Third truth, and this is kind of like a 1-2 punch after the second one. Since branding needs to permeate everything, it means it likely has to come from the top. Your top level leadership, ideally your founder and your owner, needs to be bought into the value of branding, but also they need to guide this process. Because as I said before, you're probably going to have to say no to certain things or maybe hold yourself to a higher standard on certain things. And usually those decisions can't be made and those changes can't be made from lower down the chain in your business. They usually need to come from the top tier layers in your business. Top tier leadership needs to be bought in, and ideally they need to be involved from the start. The fourth truth of branding is that it is incredibly hard to quantify. It's really hard to dictate a certain ROI to your branding efforts, which sucks, but it's just the way it is. It's an intangible thing. It is very difficult, if not completely impossible, to quantify intangible things. But if we look around us and if we look at the impact of brands on all of our own lives, I think we can all agree when it is done well, it brings an immense amount of value to the business. Just think about brands like Nike. Nike can sell you a $65 sweatshirt that's like solid black with a tiny little swoosh embroidered, and people will buy it. It's literally the same thing as the Walmart sweatshirt for $9.95. But because people buy into what Nike is doing, how they support athletes and want to champion this culture of like hard work and pushing yourselves, people love to wear that brand. I think we can all agree that when it's done well, branding does bring immense value to your organization. I gave examples of very large companies, but I think if you think about it, you can probably think about smaller businesses in your life that you have the same type of allegiance to. Like for me, I have like certain local makers that I love, and I will support almost anything they do. It's not only big brands, small brands with strong brands also get incredible value from building a strong brand over time. Fifth truth, if you can believe it, branding is not for everyone. As much as I am very much a brand advocate in my life, there are businesses that make no sense to worry about branding. And those are going to be businesses that are just commodities. They only compete on price. Their service is identical to every other service out there. You can think a little bit about maybe like plumbers, electricians, things like that. Now, I'm not saying a plumber and electrician can't build a brand, but when you think about it, there's not very many who've really worked very hard to do so because they all kind of do the same thing. The other business that makes no sense to build a brand is the people who literally don't want to put in the work. They don't see the value. They don't want to actually hold themselves to a certain standard and work on maintaining that standard in the marketplace. If that's you, don't even try to do this. It'll be a waste of your time, energy, and money. And then finally, branding is a long game. It is never done. Your brand, your organization, your business, it is always evolving. And you will have to continue to realign the brand with your organization as it grows and evolves. For most businesses, this doesn't look like radical shifts. It just looks like small tweaks along the way. It looks like every few years revisiting those brand tenets, those brand pillars, making sure they're still absolutely accurate, making sure you haven't shifted your view slightly, especially with technology changing so much and just business just evolving at a rapid pace right now. Things happen in just the business world that start to impact how you run your business and what you value in your business. All of those things you need to kind of be continually reflecting on. And from time to time, it requires actual shifts in the business, whether it's shifts in policy, slight modifications to what you've defined as your brand values or your purpose. That's when like a rebrand or a brand recalibration comes in. Every few years, sometimes you need to make some tweaks. I've been working in the branding world for like 20 years now, and it didn't used to be that you needed to make these changes as quickly as you now do. It used to be you could, go through a branding phase and it'd kind of stick with you for like 10 years or so. But I am seeing businesses rebrand much faster, anywhere from 2 to 5 years. I'm seeing happen pretty often, especially for fast moving businesses like in the tech sector, startups, SaaS companies, things like that. You'll notice they don't stay with like a same look and feel. They're always slightly tweaking and evolving their messaging and their product. That's just something to know. This is not a you do it, it's done thing. You might do it and it might be done for 6 months or a year, but you've kind of always got to be maintaining it. But again, you get immense value from this in terms of your loyal customers and people choosing you because you have a very defined differentiation in the market. So there you have it. That's branding in a nutshell. I'd love to hear if you learned anything new in this video, if it's inspired you to make any change in your business or to work on your brand more. I'd love to hear those things in the comments. If you like this content, if you want to hear more in the future, please subscribe. I would love that. And drop a like or a comment below. Until the next time.